I'm your host, Dr. Michele, and you're listening to Numbers Don't Lie. We learn to get out your feelings so you can make the best decisions for yourself, your family, and your business. I am super excited today. I'm always excited, but I feel like each episode is really good, really informative, gives you something to really help you make better decisions for yourself, your family, and your business. That's why I love saying that, because that is the power of data. A lot of times we get caught up in the numbers, but it's not just numbers. These are pieces of information to help you become better and make better decisions. And so today is no different. We're going to be focusing on breastfeeding. So August is a great month. It's my birthday month. But also it houses National Breastfeeding Month. The first week of August is World Breastfeeding Week. And then I believe the last week in August is Black Breastfeeding Week. So it's all about breastfeeding this month. And you're going to hear all about why this is important, because some people may be like, who cares? I'm not pregnant. I don't want to have children. Or whatever we want to say is nasty. I don't like when people do it in public. There's so many different things that we hear and see about breastfeeding, but we're going to really get into the real of it. We're going to talk data about it. We're going to be talking to professionals. So I have a panel. It's not just me. Two professionals where this is what they do in their real life, and every single one of them are mothers that have initiated breastfeeding for their own children. I'm excited to sit and learn. I'm gonna try my best not to talk too much and learn with y'all, but my guests are just experts in this field. Okay, we have from the beginning of the birth experience and after the birth experience, so we're grounds are covered here. Okay, so without further ado, please welcome Rosalie Henry, Tisha Felder, and Anisha Smith.
Thanks, Michelle. Thanks for having us. Would you like for me to go first?
Look, Rosalie, she said, I'm ready.
Ready. I'm ready.
Yeah, so I'm
So
gonna have you guys introduce yourselves. And Rosalie, since you volunteered, you are more than welcome to go first.
I was just offering since my name was called first. That's all. So hi everyone. I'm Rosalie Henry. I am a postpartum doula and newborn care educator with over 20 years of experience helping families to navigate the postpartum period while adjusting to parenthood. Alongside that, with everything that's going on with the maternal mortality rate, I've decided that for me to make an impact within my community is to help others in the birthing community to grow and scale their business so they can have a sustainable living and make an impact in the community.
Nice. Tisha, let you go next. I'm following the order on my screen.
All right, thank you. So hello, everyone. My name is Tisha Felder. I'm a tenured associate professor and researcher at University of South Carolina. And I guess in line with this topic, I just want to also state that I am a mother of three and have had different breastfeeding experiences with both. And so my own personal and professional experience really influences the reason why I really care deeply about this issue. Thanks for having me.
Love it. And last but not least, Anisha Smith.
Hey, everybody. I'm Anisha Smith. I am a labor and delivery nurse. I have been in that field for 23 years about. And I also am a mom of three. I breastfed all three of my children, and I have come up in from the early 2000s as a nurse to 20 something. There are a lot of things that are changing culturally around breastfeeding, a lot of policy changes, a lot of mental changes. And one of the initiatives, obviously, inside of the clinical space and hospital settings where I work primarily is promotion of increased breastfeeding and continuation of it. So that my passion is maternal health, period. And I work inside and outside of nursing and business. My initiatives are also about spreading awareness and training up professionals, staff professionals, and birth workers in the community to just be better, be more educated, and educate more around maternal health. So
I love
thank
that.
you for having me.
Oh, thank you guys for saying yes. So you hear the expertise in each area. So we have a researcher, we have people that work with mother and baby before the baby's born, after the baby's born. So we got the whole spectrum here. So I know this is going to be a really exciting conversation. So let's go ahead and dive in. I'm gonna lay, I guess, a little bit of groundwork to why we're even talking about this, because some people may think breastfeeding is outdated. there's certain practices. I feel like people think technology in modern times just makes those things old school. But so I just want to lay out some benefits. And these are research backed benefits, guys. So I'm not just making this up because I do not have children. Okay. So I'm not making this up. So there are benefits for mom and baby. So we have nutritional benefits for the baby, immune support for the baby, disease prevention. So I remember I did like a small study of this when I think I was taking a social epi class. I might have taken a social epi class, and my topic was breastfeeding, and it was talking about how the baby gets to borrow the mom's immune system during breastfeeding. And I thought that was super cool. So it's always been like a favorite topic since then. And then even with that, between the mom and baby, there's extra bonding time there. And then for the mom, there is weight loss opportunity, emotional bonding already mentioned. There's hormonal benefits as well. So they even put up here cost benefits of not having to buy formula. I mean, that is a thing, especially in 2024 with inflation. So there are multiple benefits, some under the surface and some hit our pockets. But there are multiple benefits to breastfeeding your child, and it's recommended at a minimum of 6 months. But I think they said 6 months is the golden standard, and you can go as long as you want, as they say. But up to 2 years is what I hear as far as recommendations. So it's a great practice to do, but there are, everyone doesn't do it. So I just kind of want to lay that out before we get started. And I also want to open the floor, like, what are some other benefits that you guys know both personally and professionally? Go ahead, Rosie.
Yeah, I'll go for it. Yeah, I know you mentioned, the healthy the weight loss with moms and your breastfeeding, but also it also helps to promote healthy weight gain for babies and reduce childhood obesity. Yeah, and that's definitely a plan. It also enhancing cognitive development and higher IQ scores in later childhood. So those are some of the benefits for the infant. But also for the mom, it is also research based that it helps with breast and ovarian cancer rate, lower the risk for mom in that year, and also postpartum depression.
Nice.
Yes.
I'll say in a clinical setting, one of the things that we tend to during the education of breastfeeding with moms is that breastfeeding can stimulate, obviously, the release of more oxytocin through nipple stimulation, obviously, through breastfeeding, and of course, oxytocin postpartum increases the amount of cramping or the amount of, it helps bring the uterus back to the pre-pregnancy size, which of course reduces bleeding, reduces the risk of postpartum hemorrhage, and then of course increased bleeding when they go home. So these are all things that we clinically prepare, there's several tree branches and ways you can address them, but like naturally breastfeeding helps with a lot of prevention, just prevention, like you said, all the way around. And it's so, I won't say simple because I know it's not simple. I will say it is it's a singular answer. I'll say that it is a one-stop shop as far as the benefits go.
I love that one-stop shop.
I just want to add to what you all have shared. So also the lowering of risk of SIDS among babies. So that's about, and actually the reduction is about 50% reduction in risk of SIDS. And what's even more, I think, impactful is that that risk lowering benefit can be achieved in at least 2 months. So you don't even have to go as far as the 6 months, which is recommended. And then I do want to build off of what Rosalie shared about breastfeeding and breast cancer, because that's one area where I've really focused my work. I started out really doing breast cancer research, and then after my own personal experiences with breastfeeding, learning more about this relationship between breastfeeding and breast cancer, I've just really become really fascinated by it, and particularly for Black women, because the breastfeeding has even more of an impact on reducing our risk, particularly for very aggressive breast cancers, like triple negative breast cancers that are more likely to be diagnosed among Black women, and we're also more likely to die from those type of breast cancers. So this is definitely an area that I'm like extremely passionate about, because I think we generally know some of the benefits, particularly for babies, but we really don't talk a lot about the benefits to moms.
I love that. And I thank you guys for bringing in all those different areas, because this is stuff that they live and breathe, y'all. I get to study as epidemiologist, like different topics, but I don't really dive into one particular topic since, like, honestly, since my dissertation. I was all up in colorectal cancer, okay? I could probably tell you everything. But since then, working in corporate America and being an entrepreneur, I don't get a chance to dive into topics anymore. So I love the fact that you guys are bringing your personal and professional experience. So now that we have the foundation laid, because believe it or not, like, even though we kind of know this being in public health and then you guys working so closely with mother and baby, it's very common knowledge to us, but you'll be surprised that, how many people don't know the benefits, because when you compare the United States to other countries, the United States actually has a lower initiation rate, as well as a longevity. So we're developed nations. Even when you compare us to other developed nations, we're behind. We're kind of behind in health in general. And then when we look at break it down by race, it's actually not terrible. But African American women or Black women, they are a little further behind from a couple of different sources. And so, being that it is Black Breast Cancer Week, there it is. I got it. This deserves some attention as well. So we know the benefits. We hear these numbers, but what are some challenges to explain, like, why we're not at like 90+%? You know what I mean? Did you know that data-driven organizations were 19 times more profitable? 19. You heard me right. Perhaps you're asking, what is data-driven and how do I become one of those organizations? I'm so glad you asked. I want you to go take a quiz. It's a simple, quick quiz to help you assess if you are in fact one of those organizations. Head over to mogulbeginnings.com/data into dollars quiz now. That's mogulbeginnings.com. You can just go to mogulbeginnings.com and it'll show you the data into dollars quiz. Take it now. You'll see if you're on your way to 19xing your profitability. You're listening to Numbers Don't Lie on KCCR Cityscape. We hope you're enjoying the tunes and all the jams. Make sure you visit our website over at brownstoneworldwide.com to learn about all things Brownstone. You can check out Brownstone Living Magazine and all the great things that we have on the website, as well as the shop. You just got to head over to the website, brownstoneworldwide.com.
Keeping it locked to KCCR Radio,
my station,
the Brownstone Center, and don't forget, no matter where you go, there we are.
For me, I think one number one thing is the lack of support and guidance in the early week, and this is something I always push not say push, but encourage my clients when I first meet with them, during consultation, pre-birth, establish a relationship with a lactation consultant. Right? Because no matter how much of a perfect birth plan, postpartum plan you have, things can happen. So having that relationship with a lactation consultant before you even have the baby helps, because now you know who you'll be calling, right? You're not going to be like somebody like, okay, who do I call? What do I do? You already established that relationship, which is so important. Also, think about what your workplace challenges may be, right? Do you have a proper place to feed, to breastfeed with, to pump when you get back to work? How are you going to store your milk? So those are things that we have to make sure that, our workplace is ready for us to get back to work. And culturally, also, there's so much misinformation out there about, breastfeeding versus formula. I've had clients when I met them tell me they're not going to breastfeed because, they want to make sure that their boobs stay, place. So it's like, wow, so it's all information, education. We need to have more and have it readily accessible to everyone.
I did want to chime in on that, Rosalie, because I remember being a student when I was getting my PhD, and my advisor, when I started, she was actually pregnant. And very soon after I got there, when the school year started, she had her baby, but she came back. And one thing I noticed was that she had a door. Like, she had her own office. Then she might even had a mini fridge. And I was like, that's actually a privilege that some corporate, not even all, but some corporate women get, is that they have a door to pump. Because under Affordable Care Act, there's supposed to be a designated place to pump at all workplaces. Now, I don't know what it looks like.
Not the bathroom.
And that's not the bathroom. Thank you for the clarification, because it's not supposed to be the bathroom. So I don't know what it looks like in 2024, but that was one thing when I say I would never forget that she was able to come back to work because she could close the door. And so it was still an option for her to continue to breastfeed as opposed to those that work in the service-based industry or something like that, you know?
No, I was like, and that it should be across the board. But if you think about someone who's working like maybe a restaurant, or like a fast food place, or we just need to normalize breastfeeding and make sure that we provide the resource for mom to be able to breastfeed comfortably or and be ready to want to go back.
So I felt like this was a great lead in to my experience with working the night shifts as a nurse and breastfeeding. My son, I was actually a high school student. I was able to pump in high school. And there was no space, obviously, but there was a place that I could go. My last two children, I was a nurse already, and they had designated pumping spaces with a rocking chair, with pumps. You were relieved of your patient so that you could go, and there was no limit. Now, sometimes this flow of the unit, I will say, it was like, I really have to go or I'm going to explode and ruin my clothes. And that sometimes is the industry, like she talked about restaurants, but nursing too, you are literally caught up in something that's not about you, but you're literally going to explode if you don't get relief soon. And so the respect around planning ahead and letting the folks in charge know, me being one of those people in charge, had to always be prepared to let my nurses go pump and not bother them about when and how long, because we understood that was something that's food for their child. So I will say, just from a nursing perspective, or at least in the hospital setting, and I can't speak obviously for all hospitals, I've worked in 3 states at several hospitals, and they did make it a big deal, and not just some shabby closet. Like, there was an actual dedicated space for this, and it really does help you just getting through the shifts and your comfort level and ability to come back to work and not miss, or not loathe that time away. You could take your milk home and freeze it. We were freezing it while on shift, and we take it home. So I was able to really keep my second child. We were at 13 months of breastfeeding.
Wow.
And I went back to work at the 6th week with her. She's now 19, but she got 13 months and I worked. And so it is possible. It is possible. Absolutely. And she was the hardest person. It was a 3 weeks of trying with her before she even got to really fully latch. So like, I can tell you stories about, like, it's a thing, and it is not always an instantaneous thing, but you absolutely cannot give up on that if that is what you want to do. So I just wanted to chime in on that because, yes, Rosalie, we have to normalize. We have to. I think I was in the airport. I was in DC or Richmond, walked right past this funny looking thing, and it was a pod for breastfeeding. So it's my very first. So they are, and it looked, I mean, it didn't look really appealing, but it was private, and that's the point. No windows. And if you absolutely have a family, you have other children. A lot of these moms have other children too sometimes, and you waiting on your spot, and you really need to go away. And airport bathrooms are not ideal even for using the bathroom. So you can imagine breastfeeding them. And one of them, I thought that was something to really, applaud whoever is pushing, for these big spaces where people are like sometimes held up for days, with delayed flights, having a place to breastfeed. So yeah.
Yeah, and as everybody's talking about workplace, I think one of my soapboxes is also the lack of paid leave that many women have. And so, we have the record high rates of women working in the labor force now, and the US is one of very few countries that does not have national paid leave. From a research perspective, there's a very positive, strong relationship between the length of paid and even sometimes unpaid leave and increase in breastfeeding initiation and duration. So we know that the longer time you have away from work, I think as you were talking about, Anisha, like being able to really establish that relationship, because like those first couple of weeks are rough. Especially when you're in the hospital, you may have some support, but when you go home, if you don't have that support, it can, those first 2 weeks, I feel like those are that critical time of having the support. And if you have to be at work, you may not be able to have someone to come and support you. And, I will say from a personal standpoint, I breastfed my youngest the longest, and it was really impacted by COVID. And because again, and I mean, there's some research even showing that people who have more privileged jobs actually benefited more from breastfeeding during COVID, because we were at home.
Right.
And so I didn't have to worry about going in any building. I was, I had learned from the other two, like the challenges. So I was like, let me start storing my milk up early. From the minute I got home, I was pumping and freezing milk. And then COVID hit and we were at home. And so like I just get her, have my meeting, do whatever I need to do, bring my baby to breast, feed her. And I fed her for 14 months. And that was the longest I breastfed any of my kids. But that barrier was gone. And, it's like that I still was getting paid, but I didn't have to worry about going into the workplace and having my baby go somewhere else. So I think that piece for me continues to be like a major issue, because particularly for, Black women, women of color, we typically work outside the home and work primarily in service jobs, as Rosalie was talking about, maybe don't have those spaces to pump and store your milk as well. So those, I think, are some major challenges for not just women of color, but really all women. Because I think you pointed that out, Michele, how the rates drop dramatically from initiation to 6 months. And that's for all women. And I think that's really indicative of the lack of paid leave.
Yeah.
And I'll chime in on that too. Just what Dr. Felder said. Just being home and being comfortable. You don't have the added stress to think about leaving home, driving to work and all those added, stuff. So you're more now able to focus and relax. And I'm sure for 14 months you were able to produce more because you were in a different space.
Wow.
So it's just so much more, helpful just being able to be in a space where you're relaxed, you're comfortable, you're stress-free, your mental state is at a better level. So it helps with both mom and baby.
And if I can add to that, I think we were talking earlier about being privileged. I also have an office. I have my own door, but with my other two, I was so stressed all the time.
Yes.
And I didn't have as much education as I needed with my first. And so I was paranoid when I had my second, like, oh, is this gonna work? And just the stress of pumping and feeling like, okay, I gotta hurry up and pump before I go to this next meeting. I'm thinking I'm not producing enough because I was looking at somebody else and how much output they had.
Wow.
I was so stressed out. And so to your point, like being at home, it was like COVID was stressful, I think, for all of us, but I was still safe in my home with my baby, with my family. And the stress level was like almost non-existent in terms of my breastfeeding experience. So you're spot on with that. Like the stress can be very real.
Because like even you're pumping, then you're still in the back of your mind, you're at work. So now you're still watching the clock. Even if you're subconsciously doing it, you're still on the clock. So your body cannot relax as much as your home. So you can, produce what do you need to produce for your baby.
I think this is the part where the hustle
Y'all
culture
blowing my mind. I
really
just had to say
does
that.
hurt.
Go ahead, Anisha.
No, I just said sometimes this hustle culture, this American culture of hustling and doing whatever it takes for however long it takes, whatever that looks like in whatever industry, is harmful, is damaging. You add vanity to it. Vanity is one of the metrics I've seen make a huge kind of like incline over my personal years and I say vanity, I mean surgeries and things where the mom gets pregnant after, perhaps some sort of cosmetic surgery or breast surgery or whatever, and her husband is a second or third husband, and the priorities of breastfeeding with those kids are not the priorities. So that's some of the things where I say vanities on the increase, where women just don't prioritize breastfeeding. Formula is here. I'm gonna use that, and everybody gets happy. My husband doesn't have to compete, because a lot of men, I won't say a lot of men, I will say there are men.
Let me look that up while you're saying it.
Breastfeeding.
I can give you some stories on that.
I don't want to put a statistical, because it is social, but I see this through I've seen the shudders of a woman who thinks breastfeeding is gross. No, I'm good on that. No, I don't want to do that. So, a lot of that education, like you almost have to stop what you're doing. Okay, so before you say ew one more time, let me just explain what you are bypassing. And I'll even just say, just do it for 2 weeks. Just get the colostrum in. And then I'll explain about the importance of colostrum and why, if you do nothing else, do that. If you can get it. If you can get it out, if you can get it onto a spoon or to a syringe, do that. And another one thing I'll say before I stop is, I work for a hospital system that is kind of very forward thinking. And so, I had never previously worked at a place where lactation was available 24/7. So if you delivered your baby at night, you had to wait for lactation to come on in that next morning, which means if you had a difficult child, if you had a baby that, like the nurses are busy, the labor nurse, the postpartum nurse probably can't give you that level of attention and education specifically in lactation that you would get with a consultant on in-house. But I don't know if it's everywhere, but I can tell you that a lot of moms feel way more confident when the lactation is rounding on postpartum and labor and delivery, and seeing those moms like shortly after birth, within the first 2 hours after birth, they're showing up and talking with them. And I can actually hand that off as a nurse and say, if you got any specific questions, lactation is in house 24/7. So somebody's coming to see you. That really does increase the unless she's a pro, obviously, if she's a pro, but for the ones who have trouble and who have issues, 24/7 lactation is huge. It's a huge benefit in those first few days.
This has been a very educational session for myself. So I appreciate, again, like your perspectives from your professional side as well as your personal experience. And I hope that the listeners were able to take something in for themselves or even for their family and friends, because like you said, we just don't know. You don't know what you don't know. And once motherhood starts, it's like you in it, like you don't get no days off. So it can be too late to try to start learning once the baby is here. So I totally hear that. Just our society as a whole has to do better with just prevention and forward thinking and being proactive, as opposed to reactive. And that's in all areas of our health. And this is one of those areas because it affects mom and baby. So that's 2 generations that can be impacted. You get a 2-for-1 special, y'all. I mean, why wouldn't you? Again, I'm very grateful for each of you. And before we go, how can our listeners reach out to you? And remember, some people are listening, so they can't see us. So if you need to spell anything out, go ahead and spell it. We'll start with you, Anisha.
So you can reach me, Anisha Smith. I'm in a few places, but in this space, I talk the most about it on LinkedIn. So Anisha Smith, RNC. You'll see me in blue. And LinkedIn, you can find me there, connect with me there, please. I am building out a SaaS platform, or I'll say a business management platform for birth workers, because these things are so important. I'm actually working with Rosalie in this endeavor for her and the membership of business. We are really trying to get business and education more so in the forefront, along with the passion of birth working, so that we can be more effective in the community. And a lot of this stuff that we talk about that needs to be done is actually a part of the trainings and the business operations of all these doulas and lactation and childbirth educators. And it's not just this one-to-one passion. There are other ways we can work. And so that's one of my big give backs after being in the industry for 2 decades, and then being in business in a non-healthcare setting, is to merge the two. We definitely need to do better with nurturing in business. We do. And so that's one of the ways that you can connect with me as well. If you are in the birth working space and are interested, you can reach out.
Thank you. And Rosalie, since what you do is so connected to Anisha, I'll let you go next.
Okay, so you can reach me on LinkedIn also, Rosalie, Rosalee, Henry, Henry. And like Anisha said, we're working together just to make sure that we who are in the birth industry have a sustainable living, because this is such a passion-led field. So how can we make sure that the workers are do have a sustainable living, that we can ensure make an impact on the maternal mortality rate? Because if people are getting burnt out, not getting paid, they're not going to stay. And we have to address the elephant in the room. We need to be able to get paid for what we're doing. We shouldn't have to be worrying about having to give discount or having to work 4 or 3 jobs. We are at the forefront bringing life into to this world, and we should be able to have a sustainable living. So having that business and knowing how to run a business is so important. I'm also on Instagram at Rosalie Henry 7, and also the 7-figure doula whisperer.
Go ahead, Dr. Felder.
All right. So I am also at LinkedIn. My name is spelled Tisha with an I, so Tisha Felder. On LinkedIn. I'm also on X, formerly known as Twitter, at Dr. Tisha Felder altogether. And lastly, on Instagram, under our breastfeeding research initiative called Mocha Mama's Milk. And so it's MOCHAMAMAS milk, MILK altogether.
Awesome. And you guys can reach out to me, Dr. Michele, for all things data. Well, I mean, some things data. I don't do everything. But yeah, so if you need help articulating your impact, and a lot of times, and you need data to do that, those are one of the main things that we do at Mogul Beginnings. You can reach out to me, all things social media, Mogul Beginnings, MOGUL Beginnings. You can go to my website as well, mogulbeginnings.com, and you can, schedule a complimentary call with us if you want to learn more about working with us and allow us to serve you in that capacity. Again, I appreciate each and every one of you ladies. You guys are brilliant and amazing. Keep doing what you're doing. Keep spreading the word. You guys are at the forefront, and I really appreciate the work that you guys are doing. So for listeners, thank you again for tuning in, and have a great rest of your week. See y'all.
Thanks again, Dr. Michele. It's
Thank
great
you
meeting everybody.